Sony shooters have a lot of different lenses to choose from, and honestly, there's almost too many lenses to choose from, which can make it hard to decide what you need in your kit, right? But what if there were only 2 lenses that you need in order to basically cover everything that you shoot? And today we're talking about potentially that for about 90% of most shooters. Now this is the Tamron 16-30 f2.8, and this is the Tamron 25-200 f2.8 to 5.6. And again, for 90% of shooters, this is probably all you need. I mean, look at the size of these things, right? Now, this covers all the way from ultra wide 16mm all the way out to telephoto, almost super telephoto, 200mm on a full frame sensor. And the question is, are these good enough for a full-on professional style setup or kit, right? I use these in 3 very distinct environments this weekend, and these are my first impressions, and we're gonna jump into this, and I'm gonna talk to you about what I was able to get and what I was not able to get, and whether or not you should consider these for your kit. Now, before we get started, these were sent out to me by Tamron after I posted the video a couple weeks ago around, is the 35-150 still king now that the 35-100 is released? A lot of you got in the comment section talking about, you know, testing the 35-100 and also other Tamron lenses, etc. And so when I reached out to them, they did not have the 35-100 ready for me to, or available for me to review at this point, because they only have so many loaner options. But they did send these out for me to test as well, because some of you wanted to see more Tamron lenses. So if you do want to see that 35-100 millimeter review, please continue to put that in the comment section below, and we'll try to make that happen. But as always, this is an unbiased, user-friendly, buyer-focused review. These are on loan. No money was sent to me or anything like that. They just sent these out so that I could share my honest and transparent thoughts, as I do in all my videos. And so we're going to jump into these, the pros and the cons of these, where I really like these, and then, you know, maybe some limitations that may decide, you know, help you decide whether or not these are the right fit for you. So as always, honest and transparent. So let's jump into it. These cover, like I said, a large array of space. This is a 16-30, right? This covers ultra wide. So you're thinking, you know, headshots, vlogging, architectural, landscape. From a video standpoint, this is your establishing shots. This is your wide angle. This allows you to be close to the camera in a smaller environment for creators and vloggers. Now, when you talk about this one, this is the 25-200. This is going to cover portraits, sports, video as well, right? And it gives you the flexibility and versatility to have one lens, because 25 is still really wide for a full frame camera. So you're still getting wide and almost ultra wide with this lens. This is just super ultra wide at 16, but you're getting ultra wide with this one at 25-200, starting at 2.8 and then eventually reaching out to 5.6 as you get into that telephoto area and environment. So for a lot of creators, that is almost ideal from a, you know, range standpoint, if you will. And one really nice thing about these is that they have the same filter thread, 67mm. So if you're having both of these in your kit, you don't actually have to have 2 different filters. You can use the same filter when you're swapping out your lenses. And because they cover such a broad range, you're switching out less and less. If you need something beyond 200mm, then you're going to be, you know, using something different anyway. You know, if you're in that 300, 400 and stuff like that. I always say with the Sony E-mount, the nice thing about the majority of the cameras is they have the Super 35 mode. So in essence, you know, your 16-30 is, it's always hard to do this math. Your 16-30 is now a 25-40. Right, on a super 35, and then your 25 to 200 is a 42 to 300, right? And so keep in mind, I love that about the Sony E-mount system is that you can always get more out of it by going into Super 35 mode or using a crop sensor body. Let's talk about what really matters, and that's how do these lenses perform in different environments. So the 3 environments that I shot in this weekend, Two were outdoor, one was indoors. And outdoor Friday night was a middle school track event. It was cloudy and thunderstorms. Cloudy and eventually moved to thunderstorms, and they had to shut the track meet down because of lightning and stuff like that. So that was the first environment. The second environment was the next morning in a different area here in Georgia, and it was extremely sunny and bright, and it eventually was very hot. And so it was completely sunny. So I'm dealing with other scenarios as far as like too much light and stuff like that and having to use filters, etc. And then the third environment, I had like half, but the third environment was a gym for AAU basketball later Saturday evening and then Sunday. And that gym was very dark. And so I was able to see these lenses in three very distinct environments in a very short time. But this isn't a review. I want to make it clear that this is still a first impressions because I want to continue to use these. I have these for a month. And so put your questions in the comment section below. And as I continue to test these, I'll answer those over time and then potentially do another video. But anyway, let's jump into how they perform. In the outside performances, the lenses perform really well. On the first night, the 16-30 performed really well because this one allowed me to get kind of those establishing shots. I could get the whole track. I could get a lot of different activity happening in different areas all at once. But also if I was up close to something, I could be up close, get detail, and still get the story around what's happening. A lot of times with running, when you use the super telephoto lenses and things like that, and you zoom in on the runner, you lose the story, right? You lose their place in the race. You lose the people on the field or the infield that's kind of running around with them. And for the zoom, this one worked really well as well because now I'm getting the detail, right? I'm able to tell the story, and I'm able to, in a very small package, get, you know, the wide shot at 25 millimeters on full frame, and then all the way into 200 with the same lens on you know, same camera body. And the camera that I used the most Friday night was my Sony a7C II because these lenses are so light. It was a really nice light setup, and I was able to carry it in my sling bag, just the two lenses, a drone, and my camera body, and some extra batteries and microphone and all that stuff, strap, etc. So they performed really well on the first day. On the second day, which was Saturday morning, in the more sunny environment, completely different scenario to work through, right? We'll talk about limitations in a second, but the next morning was bright sunlight directly down onto the track. So that's where you're getting that harsh light. It's not the moon, you know, it's not the golden hours. It's the actual where the sunlight is beaming down. My son ran at 9, and then, you know, we were there till like 2 o'clock. So we were there throughout that whole period of very bright sunlight. And there were, you know, we'll talk about limitations in a second, but in those environments, you're having to use filters. You're having to, you know, kind of soften that light, and you know, being a run and gun, you're not carrying, you know, different diffusers and stuff like that. You are in the elements, and what you get is what you get. And so, and then there's no repeats in the type of stuff that I do when it comes to sports. I can't be like, hey, go do that pole vault again so I can get the shot. You got to be able to do it, and you got to be able to do it really quickly, right? And so that was the reality of these two lenses in the outdoor environment, and they perform really well as you're seeing on the screen. So before we move into indoor performance, let's talk about this. This is a variable aperture lens. So that means the farther you reach, the less you see. And what I mean by that is the less light that comes into the sensor, because at 25 millimeters, it is 2.8. And then at 200 millimeters, it is 5.6. Now, that's not a bad range at all. And we'll talk about how that, you know, performs in the environment that I was in, which was probably worst case scenario for a lens like this because of how dark it was. So let's jump into that. So in the indoor environment that I was in is a gym that it has one entrance. It's kind of like a converted, probably was a department store at one time, and it has a whole glass front, open doors. But then once you're in the gym, you know, the front two floors get a lot of light. The back floor does not. And so with that being said, the 16-30 is an f2.8. This was completely fine, specifically on Sony bodies with dual ISO, shooting in log. No problems whatsoever with this. This lens is you can use this anywhere. This lens, depending on the body that you're using, may start to it doesn't become unusable, not at all. I got some really great shots with this lens in that environment. This is just a lens where you have to know what you're getting yourself into as you start to reach longer and use that longer focal reader. And if you're zooming in and out while recording, that's where it becomes a thing, right? Now, this is not unusable in those environments. I just want you to be aware of, you know, the real use case for this. You have, with photography, it's less of a thing, right? With photography, you know, you can bump up your ISO and then you can use noise reduction and stuff like that in post, and you don't really run into too many problems. Let's talk about who these are for and who they are not for. 16-30, f2.8, fast aperture, low light, you're gonna do well, specifically with Sony, because we have the dual ISO that always allows us to change the environment. And depending on the body you have more flexibility, more versatility than some. The 25-200 is still, let me put the numbers just because it looks better. The 25-200 is a great lens. And I think that in most environments, again, with Sony bodies, with the dual ISO, this is still usable. The aperture is not a showstopper, and I think that variable aperture lenses get a bad rap. When I first started shooting, I used to be afraid of these because of what, you know, everybody, get primes and get all of that. But I don't agree with that after shooting for 3 to 4, almost 5 years at this point. At this point, I can sense and feel these are still usable. You just have to know what the environment is, and you have to make adjustments for the environment. For photos, you can always raise the ISO. It's not a big deal. You can also use noise reduction and stuff like that in post, which helps with portraits. For video, it's less of a thing, but you will see it if you're zooming in and out on video and you're changing your focal length if you're having to zoom and stuff like that, which I do often with sports. But you can see from the footage that it still works out really well. Now, who may not want to use these are folks that this one's good, 16-30. Don't worry about this one. Pick this one up without any thoughts whatsoever. That one's a good lens so far. But the 25-200, if you are always in a low light environment, it may not make sense to always fight that battle, right? It may not make sense to fight that battle because it comes down to what can you use the fastest to get the output that you need, and not have to worry about all of that. Again, for most people, this covers everything you need. And the price point is great. And it's just a super lightweight setup that you can carry along with you without any problem. So if you're in the film and you're shooting high, shallow depth of field and stuff like this one may not be for you. This one is going to fit pretty much anybody. But at the end of the day, there's trade-offs either way. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And we can talk about whether or not we think this may be a good fit for you. So my final thoughts on these. These were a super great pair of lenses to work with this weekend. And these are still my first thoughts. Like after the first weekend, I was able to get so many different types of shots and videos. And I want to continue to test these out and do some portraits and different stuff like that with these. Some landscapes and stuff like that, more landscapes, and kind of see what I can get with these. So you let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I definitely think that these are great lenses, and the price points make them affordable, where you can buy both of these and cover your entire range for the cost of maybe one Sony native lens, and not even like their best lens, but like their mid-tiered native lenses. But with that being said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you want to see that 35-100, keep putting that in the comment section below, because that was a deciding factor in Tamron sending these out to me. And as I said, this is always honest and transparent, because I don't think that there's a perfect product in any space. I think that there may be a perfect product for the right user, and that's kind of the focus that I take when I do my reviews. I always try to figure out who is this for, not if this is good or not, right? Obviously, when you look at the photos and you see the video, you can tell whether or not the lens is good. From there, we have to figure out, is it good for you? So, as always, if you enjoyed today's content and you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, joining below, hitting that subscribe button. But as always, stay cozy in that crazy world, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.